Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your host, Cody, here. And the Indianapolis Colts need to get their final 53-man roster trimmed down to 53 by tomorrow, Tuesday at 4 p.m. Colts need to do that. They've already been making some cuts. As I'm in the process of recording this, the Colts have made a few other cuts. We will be having that video, kind of that reaction out later today. But I wanted to take a little bit of time ahead of free agent cuts to kind of talk about some positions of need that I feel like the Indianapolis Colts need to go after, need to pursue in order to get the best players and fill some needs. So just as a quick reminder, the Colts currently stand at number 4 in the waiver order. That's obviously according to draft order. So the Colts currently stand number 4 overall, so they will get a chance at one of the top players at said needed position. So with that being said, I wanted to kind of talk about a couple positions that I wanted to highlight specifically, right? You could probably, pick and choose a few different positions, but I narrowed it down to really 3 positions that I'm looking at that the Colts might want to consider addressing in some form or fashion when it comes to the waiver cuts and the waiver claims and things like that. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the most obvious glaring need for the Indianapolis Colts, especially with the Danny Pinter injury that puts him out for the season, the interior offensive line. And guys, I don't think this is a position where the Colts need to address it just once. I think this needs to be a multiple guys brought in to address this position. And so with that being said, I feel like the Colts need to address that offensive line really across the board. I mean, really outside of the top 5, you maybe feel good about 1 to 2 players that are in the backup positions right now. And if they were to go down, you would be probably in some trouble right now. So you need some veteran experience. You need some guys that are comfortable taking some of those backup roles that can come in, play in a pinch, similar to guys like Chris Reed a couple of years ago. You found guys like Martin Lewinsky here on the waiver claim, and there's probably going to be a decent amount of offensive linemen that the Colts will have the opportunity to address. I think this needs to be the first waiver claim, and there's no questions about it. Potentially the second waiver claim as well needs to focus on this offensive line because you cannot afford to go into the season with the current offensive line the way it is, especially those guys who are backing it up. So that's a big thing for me. And also with Will Fries still injured and not practicing, I think that even amplifies the need to get a quality guard that can play both guard positions. That would go a long way for getting some interior offensive line help. So with that one, definitely the offensive line in general, but more probably specifically on the interior, because you do have guys like Blake Freeland on the outside that can play both tackles. So you feel a little bit better, even though he is a rookie and has had his struggles. You feel a little bit better about your tackles and probably your guards and centers right now. So I'd say definitely interior offensive line. But if the Colts went and got a tackle and a guard and maybe multiple interior offensive linemen, would not be mad in the slightest. So I definitely think that's a position the Colts need to look to address first and foremost. And there's really no questions, I don't think, in a lot of people's mind. The Colts probably need to address that in some way. I would probably also talk about potentially looking at some of the wide receivers for the Indianapolis Colts. And I know that maybe comes as a surprise, but none of these guys really have stood out in my mind. Ever since Ashton Dulin went down with that ACL injury, none of these wide receivers have really stood out as the next guy up, if you will. I know there's a couple guys on here who are some former high-round picks. Obviously, Brashad Perriman just got released just a few minutes ago from when I'm recording this, so he's no longer with the team. But I think the Colts would be wise maybe to try to find a guy to kind of fill that spot in some capacity. So I think wide receiver could definitely be a claim the Colts could make. I also think running back could potentially be a claim the Colts make, just because of the uncertainty with the Jonathan Taylor trade. And, according to Pat McAfee, it seems likelier that he's traded than not. Again, these are all reports. We could look back at this in 24 hours. Jonathan Taylor's still a Colt. You never know. But as it stands right now, I think it'd be wise for the Colts to do their due diligence when it comes to the running back position, just because of the uncertainty there, because Zach Moss is still out, and who knows if he'll be fully ready by the time the season starts. So I think running back, even though you like Deion Jackson and Evan Hall, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea if the Colts went and addressed it, especially with Kenyon Drake now being released. I think that would make a lot of sense for the Colts to go that route. I don't think there's any question about that. And then really, I'm torn on a couple different positions. I could be talked into potentially another defensive lineman. I could be talked into that potentially. I know there's a couple guys that are likely to get released that have shown out in preseason. So wouldn't mind. You can never have enough depth, I think, on that defensive line. And then I think maybe another secondary player as well, right? Another corner specifically, I think would make a lot of sense there. With you have a lot of guys, but I don't think it would hurt to have another proven guy in there in that secondary. It's still an extremely young unit. And I think if there's a good corner out there that you like that's still relatively young, it might make sense for the Colts to go more the veteran route there, especially with some of the question marks when it comes to some of those players right now, some of those young guys. Maybe they just need a little bit more time to develop. I guess one more position, I kind of forgot about this one, but due to kind of some of the news that's recently come out about Jelani Woods with he's dealing with that hamstring. He had a hamstring tear, actually, which we were all surprised about. We thought it was just we didn't know what the severity of the injury is. It appears that it was more serious than it was initially led on. So I can see the Colts potentially looking maybe to address tight end in some way, depending what happens with that, depending what his kind of timetable is there. So I talked about 3. I actually, I said I would do 3, but I actually talked about 5. So there you go, guys. There's a couple that I'm kind of iffy on, but I wanted to just mention them as potentially a thing. But I think offensive line, definitely. Running back, I could see, and I could probably honestly see the Colts addressing, I would say probably more defensive line than cornerback, although cornerback could be an option. I'd probably go defensive line. So those would probably be my 3, but I would say watch out for corner, watch out for tight end, watch out for wide receiver. I would not put that out of the realm of possibility at all. But guys, that's my list here of some positions of need that I do feel like the Indianapolis Colts should and probably will address in some fashion. Again, we'll see as roster cuts come out. We'll see what positions of need open up and what players open up for the Colts and what opportunities they will have to potentially add to their roster and improve in certain areas, especially some depth purposes for the offensive line. So let me know your guys' thoughts overall on the Indianapolis Colts, some of their needs ahead of waiver claims, ahead of roster cuts, all that stuff. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Really appreciate all the support. You guys are the best. Let me know, like I said, your thoughts in the comments below. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much. And as always, go Colts.